tastes in poetry vary pretty radically from one age to the next. And I was especially struck by this when I was reading Samuel Johnson's Lives of the Poets back in the fall. The first poet in the volume is named Abraham Cowley, a poet whom very few people read these days. But Johnson gave him great credit. In fact, he considered him the best of the metaphysical poets, the term that he used to describe John Donne and others of his school. Cowley wrote a eulogy for a friend of his who had died, and Johnson considered it much better than John Milton's Lycidas, which is a poem now revered and held up as one of the best of its kind in the canon. Another poet of the 17th century who was given great praise by those in the generations that followed him was Edmund Waller. John Dryden, the late 16th century poet who did some of the earliest translations of Virgil into heroic couplets, Alexander Pope, who translated Homer and who was a great satirist in his own right. These poets admired Edmund Waller as a great lyricist, someone who had polish and sophistication in his verse that reminded them most, I think, of the classical models from antiquity. One of these poems, perhaps the most famous of Waller's certainly today, is called Go Lovely Rose, and this was put to music by William Laws, and I wish I could sing it, but I won't do that to you. So Go Lovely Rose by Edmund Waller. Go, lovely rose, tell her that waste her time and me, that now she knows when I resemble her to thee, how sweet and fair she seems to be. Tell her that's young and shuns to have her graces spied, that hadst thou sprung in deserts where no men abide, thou must have uncommended died. Small is the worth of beauty from the light retired. Bid her come forth, suffer herself to be desired, and not blush so to be admired. Then die, that she, the common fate of all things rare, may read in thee. How small a part of time they share, that are so wondrous, sweet, and fair. Beautiful poem, pretty much in the Carpe Diem tradition. That is, seize the day. Your youth doesn't last long. We'll look at some more in that vein in the next few poems I do. But notice how beautifully modulated this one is. Go, lovely rose, the 4 syllables. Tell her that wastes her time and me, that now she knows, when I resemble her to thee, how sweet and fair she seems to be. So the whole poem setting up this comparison between the rose, which is the actual letter, more or less, that Waller is sending to his beloved, and the beloved herself. So the message is to her to consider her own state, to consider this more than a metaphor. I love some of these lines down later in the poem. Bid her come forth, suffer herself to be desired, and not blush so to be admired. And then the rose, in fulfilling its commission, is supposed to die. So that the beloved, understanding that her own beauty is transitory, will also see that she needs to not be so shy, to let herself come forth, to be admired, to be loved, and recognize how small a part of time they share that are so wondrous, sweet, and fair.